Hi, I'm going to do a quick video now which is about how to set the intonation of your banjo. Unlike a guitar, a banjo has lots of moving parts, and the most important one of those is the bridge, because it can slide backwards and forwards across the head, and if it does that, then that automatically means these frets are all in the wrong places. On a fretless banjo, you can have your bridge pretty much wherever you want to. Most people have it in the same place all the time. That's just because your fingering and the scale length and things is something you get used to. But with frets, that bridge has to be in the right place, and it's not the easiest job to set it up, but it's easy enough with a bit of practice to get it as good as you need to. So let's imagine you've got a banjo and you've been learning to play, and you've decided you need new strings. So you take your strings off, and then you realise that the bridge has fallen over and fallen out of place. So you've got to reset your bridge. And there's no need to panic, because it's easy enough to do. The first thing to do is have a look at your banjo head, and you might see some marks, and that might help you get it in approximately the right place. But also, often with banjos, people will put a tiny pencil line on where a bridge works for them, but that might not work for you. So start at those points that you can see, little dents in the head maybe, or a pencil mark that somebody else has made, and then we've got to test. And the way we test is, first of all, it doesn't have to be in tune with anything else at all. You can do this with your strings tuned just about anywhere, but it does make it easier if you try and get them in tune with each other. I've done another video about that. But the way to check if your bridge is in the correct place is by checking that when you play a harmonic. Now, a harmonic is where you press very, very lightly on a string in a number of places. You'll get a note that rings out, and it stays at that. So if you very lightly hold your finger over the 12th fret, that's the halfway point of the string, then you get a long ringing note, and that note should be the same as if you press your finger down on the 12th fret. Now that's pretty good, and it should be good because my bridge is in the right place now, but watch what happens when we mess it up a bit. So now I've moved it closer to the center of the banjo, and so there's the harmonic note, there's the fretted note. You can hear they're just not anywhere near the same anymore, and the fretted note is higher than the harmonic note. So what we have to do in that case is move the bridge back towards the tailpiece. And now I know I moved that quite a lot, but let's say we're just fine tuning, you really don't want to move it very much at this stage. Oh, but now look, the harmonic note is higher than the fretted note. So now we're going to have to move the bridge just a little bit back towards the middle again. So tiny bit at a time. That sounds kind of okay. what I tend to do is set the fourth string and then the fifth string, first string, and then you need to fine tune your banjo, so you need to get it back up into tune. So now the banjo is in tune with itself. It doesn't matter if this isn't D and this isn't G, but it's in tune with itself. And then what I'm going to do is just check some harmonics to check the strings against each other. And so the harmonic on the 12th fret of the 4th string against the fretted note on the 7th fret of the 3rd string should be the same if you've got your banjo in tune. If you think you've tuned it by fretting at the 5th on the 4th string and playing the 3rd string, like me there, and when you play the harmonic here, 12th fret harmonic, 7th fret on the 3rd string, if that's out, then you know that you haven't quite got it right, and there's probably something happening up here when you are pressing that note onto the fret. Sometimes if there's a very high action, so a big gap between the strings and the 12th fret, that's the sort of action I play with on this banjo. That is quite a high action. It takes quite a lot of tension to push in, and obviously that needs to be adjusted for in the tuning. So when you check, it's best not to press really hard. Just press as little pressure as possible to get the fretted note. Now, quite a lot of people have a straight bridge on a banjo, and that sort of seems logical, but banjo strings are not all the same. So these three strings, the first, second and third strings, all get a little bit thicker and a little bit less tight as you come towards the third string. And that means that the ideal spot here is actually a little bit closer to the nut end of the banjo up there on the first string, a little bit further away on the second, and a little bit further away again on the third string, which is here. It's sort of, this is closest to the nut, this is a bit further away, and then this is furthest away. But then you'll see that this, which is the, this one, which is the fourth string. The fourth string is thicker and it's wound, so it behaves differently. If it was thicker and unwound, then this line might keep coming this way and not start coming back towards the nut. But with a wound string, the point that the bridge needs to be is slightly closer to the nut than the third string, and then the fifth string, which is short and thin and tight, it is again closer to the nut than the fourth string. So quite often you'll see a bridge which is stepped, curved like a smile, and this one it has that little sort of dip in the middle for the third string, which works quite nicely. But that's how to set a banjo up and get the intonation as good as you can. It does matter what sort of strings you have. So if you fit, I don't know, tenor banjo strings onto a 5-string banjo, it'll be hard to get the intonation right. If you fit, C, G, D, A tenor banjo strings onto a G, D, A, E tenor banjo, it'll be hard to get the intonation right. You need the right strings for the right job, and then it should work out okay. If that doesn't work, or if your bridge has to be at a really peculiar angle, so it's coming really close towards the nut on the treble end, then there could be something else that's not quite working out right. Sometimes it's the slots in the bridge which are not wide enough, or just gripping too tightly, or maybe they're too wide, or they're not evenly cut. And the same for the slots in the nut, which is in there, look. And if they're too tight, then again that can have an impact. If they're not well cut, so there's not a straight line across the end of the nut, then that can cause problems too. The other moving parts in the banjo that can impact your intonation are head tension. So if your head gets a bit slack because of the weather, because you haven't tightened it for a while, it might be an idea just to tweak it up to a bit higher tension before you set the banjo. And all of these things, I'm just tuning your banjo and setting the intonation all seem easier when you have your banjo tuned lower. And that's because any changes you make can be bigger but a smaller proportion of the whole. So just easier to get things in tune. It's easier to get the intonation correct. That doesn't mean you can do it in a low tuning and then tune it up to a high tuning and it'll sound better. It means that playing in lower tunings just makes it easier to achieve. Anyway, I'm rambling on. I hope that helps. Thanks very much.